Good morning, Mr. Freethy.
Good morning, sir.
You understand you were administered the oath yesterday and you're still under oath, right?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
Your Honor. Detective Free, I just have a couple of questions to wrap up with. And up on the screen I have what's been admitted as Exhibit 73A, which we had some discussion about yesterday. I want to ask you about row 17 in particular. And again, if you could just tell the jury what the URL is indicated in row 17.
Oh, yes. It's www.xvideos.com/?K equals black plus cousin.
And did you have an opportunity last night after you testified to sort of refamiliarize yourself with that xvideos.com website?
Objection, I believe that's a mischaracterization. He indicated that he never went to the website ever, so he wouldn't have been in the position.
That is absolutely not the question that I just asked. I asked him whether he had an opportunity to familiarize himself with that website last night after he
I
testified.
thought you said refamiliarize.
I thought you said. All right, go ahead.
Did you have an opportunity to go to that website last night after you testified?
Yes.
And is there any way on that website to plug in specific search terms?
Yes, there is.
And how would you plug search terms into that website?
If you were on your phone, you would just tap on the search box. And then
Okay.
your keyboard would pop up.
And is there any way on that website to filter a search by date?
Yes, there is.
And how would you filter a search by date?
There's several categories below the search box where you can sort by date, relevance, things like that.
Okay. And can you filter by a certain date range?
Yes.
And what are the sort of date ranges that are available to filter by?
I believe the largest is 6 months. The smallest is 1 week.
Can you filter by 3 months?
Yes.
Okay. And did you, when you went to the website, did you try to plug in specific search terms into the search box?
Yes.
And which search terms did you plug in?
I searched the term black cousin.
And did you filter that search by date?
Yes.
And what was the date range that you used to filter that search?
3 months.
And when you did that, did you see a particular URL get generated?
Yes.
And was there any significance to that URL that you saw?
Yes, it was that URL right there.
The one that's reflected in row 17?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further.
Prosecutor.
Good morning, Detective.
Good morning, sir.
Now, when did you first begin your analysis on this particular exhibit, 73A? Approximately.
Approximately last night.
Last night was the first time you ever did analysis on exhibit 73A?
I looked it over
You looked it over.
prior to that.
Okay. And you knew you were coming to court to testify in this particular trial, correct?
Correct.
And you waited until after trial yesterday in order for you to go to this website to do an analysis on it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you take any notes while you were doing your analysis?
In terms of...
In terms of anything? Did you take any notes while you were doing your analysis?
Yes.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay. And did you take a copy or screenshot of the actual URL when you went to this particular site?
No, I did not.
You did not? Okay. Did you write it down?
No, I did not.
You did not? Okay. So you just, based upon your memory, it's the exact URL, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, why would you do the analysis before yesterday or last night on this particular information?
On this particular information?
Yes.
I was focused on other
Cases?
tasks, yeah.
Okay. And you knew that you were going to be requested to be an expert in this particular, or at least somebody to testify in this particular case on this particular subject matter, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But yet you didn't do your homework to, I guess, educate yourself on this particular information, correct?
Correct.
And you stated that you guessed or assumed yesterday that K equals search. What type of research did you do to come to that conclusion?
I did a Google search on what that means.
You did a Google search. What term did you put into the search engine on Google to come back with an answer?
What does $K equals mean in a URL?
Okay. And you didn't go to any various sites to verify the validity of that particular answer, did you?
I did go to multiple sites.
You went to multiple sites?
Yes.
Name a couple of sites that you went to.
The main one was Microsoft in their forums.
Okay. So you went to Microsoft in their forums. You were reading the forums and just taking what their answers were at face value?
Yes.
Okay. But my question was, what, I guess, search engine, or not search engine, but website did you go to, plug in a term into their search engine to verify that the URL will actually have K equals? That's my question.
I went to xvideos.com and typed in black cousin. And that's what,
You did that last night, right?
right.
You testified yesterday, before last night, that you assumed or you felt you knew that K equals means a search, correct?
Correct.
My question is, what website other than last night did you go to use their search engine on that particular website to come to a conclusion that K equals search?
Microsoft's website and a website called Stack Overflow Exchange.
Stack Overflow Exchange?
Yes.
What type of website is that?
That's a website for programmers of websites.
And did you ask the question or you just was reading through the forum?
I was reading through the forum. The question was already asked.
Okay. So you didn't go to independent websites to verify if those answers were correct. True?
Correct.
Now, in your task, were you also presented Exhibit 73B, which is a full web, what, actually? And were you provided this information?
Yes.
Okay. And it was your understanding that this was a complete web history of this particular device that you were asked to do some analysis on, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you would agree that this particular website has over 18,000 different, I guess, entries, so to speak, correct?
This particular evidence, yes.
Okay. And you would agree through this interface, you're able to search particular terms, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And if you were to search, say for instance, porn on this particular interface, you would get approximately, what, 1,154 entries, correct?
I'm not sure. I did not perform that analysis.
You didn't perform that analysis? Okay. Or you can say search.
Search.
Yes.
And just for the record, I'm searching Exhibit 73B, doing a keyword search for the term form. And I'm clicking Show Results. And then, again, just for the record, it says the number of results is 1,154.
So, Detective, you would agree that this particular document would indicate there's 1,154 different entries of porn, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the Exhibit 73A, which you were testifying about, only had 27 different entries for this that were related to a cousin, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So that would be 27 out of 1,154, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, when you were doing your analysis, why wouldn't you search for the keyword of porn? What were you searching for? What were you doing?
I wasn't searching this document specifically.
But you had the document, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so what were you searching for then?
I was analyzing 73A.
You were analyzing 73A? Okay, but in order to analyze 73A, don't you need 73B, a more of a bird's eye view of the totality of the web search in order for you to make an analysis? Don't you think that?
I wasn't asked about anything about 73B.
Okay, but you did receive it though, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and you thought they just gave it to you just because they didn't have nothing better to do?
No. I was only asked about the information that was in 73A.
They was asking you what your opinion is, what you felt about it?
They were asking me about the specific web URLs.
Okay, but they were asking you about the specific web URLs, but you didn't even go to that specific website to check, right?
Correct.
So you didn't even do the task that they asked you to do, correct?
I'd say I did.
You'd say you did?
Yeah.
Okay. But your action would maybe dictate something else. That'd be a fair statement, right?
No, sir.
Thank you. No further questions.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Any questions from the jury? Go ahead, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you tell the jury where you currently work?
I currently work for Internal Affairs at the Wayne County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you been with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office?
Going on 18 years this year.
And how long have you been specifically working for Internal Affairs?
Since August 1st, 2019.
And in terms of your role with Internal Affairs, what are your basic duties?
Live monitoring, so if I was sitting in my office right now, I'd be listening to jail calls going on in real time. And then my other responsibility is provide jail communication to the prosecutor's office or requesting police agency.
And when you refer to jail calls, in terms of the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, does it have any role with respect to the Wayne County Jail?
Yes, sir.
And what is the Wayne County Sheriff's Office role when it comes to the Wayne County Jail?
Just providing safety and security of the facility.
Okay. And
You don't have to speak right now.
Okay, sorry about that.
Please keep it myself.
do inmates at the Wayne County Jail have the ability to make calls to the outside from jail?
Yes, sir.
And are those calls recorded?
Yes, sir.
And is there some sort of system in place that stores recordings of those calls?
Yes, sir.
And do you have access to that system?
Yes, sir, I do.
And at times throughout this case, have you been asked by either myself or by members of the Detroit Police Department to provide recordings of calls associated with an inmate by the name of Jaylin Brazier?
Yes, sir.
And when asked to, I guess, provide calls specific to an inmate, how can you find calls specific to a particular inmate?
Just by the inmate's name.
Okay. And are there ways to, in the system, to go in and I guess, pull calls from a specific inmate?
Yes, sir. For a specific inmate or a specific phone number.
Okay. And how do you go about doing that for a specific inmate?
Logging in and telling the company that we're contracted with, putting in the requested information, and then the system ends up generating an email link, which is sent to the prosecutor's office, which they can extract the calls. So the system essentially pulls the requested information from their servers, which is making a copy of it, and gets sent to the prosecutor's office. They'll get that download link, click on it, it's in a zip file, and extract the calls, and then they can review them.
And are there any ways to ensure that calls are, and recordings of calls are traceable to a particular inmate?
Yes, sir.
And what sort of system or controls are in place to do that?
So how it works is when inmates come into Wayne County Jail, they're booked in a chronological order, so no two inmates have the same inmate number. Following that, we give them a 6-digit PIN. After that, we give them a 4-digit PIN, which is at the last 4 digits of their social security number. If the inmate doesn't know his social security number, we reset that 4-digit PIN, and then the inmate picks the PIN number that he can remember. Now, when the inmate sets up his account with Tellmate, he puts in his inmate number, followed by the 6-digit PIN, followed by the 4-digit PIN, and then he says a name, which is captured for voice biometrics, that's prevent theft.
Okay, and so are there ways potentially for an inmate to bypass that system and make a call that might not be traceable to that specific inmate?
Yes, sir.
And how might an inmate go about doing that?
So if you got another inmate on the ward, and you talk to him and the inmate agrees to it, he can actually call the telephone number after he goes through his own prompts on his own account, and then just after he's done with the prompts and the voice biometrics, he can just send the phone to the inmate that requested it, and then the conversation can happen.
And is it, in your experience of being involved with internal affairs over the past 5 years, have you come into circumstances where you found calls from one inmate on another inmate's account?
Yes, sir, several times.
Okay. And in connection with this particular case, were you also asked to search for calls to a specific phone number, sort of jail system-wide?
Yes, sir, a couple of them.
And when you searched for calls to those specific numbers you were asked to search for, were you able to identify inmate calls to those numbers?
Yes, sir.
And did you provide those calls to me or to other individuals in this case?
Yes, sir.
And was one of the numbers that you were requested to search for 313-516-7046?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And was one of the other numbers you were requested to search for 313-412-5068?
Yes, sir.
And I'm holding what's been marked as proposed exhibit 90. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Within the Tellmate system, do you have the ability to go in and generate a list of calls that have been made to a specific number?
Yes, sir.
And what is proposed exhibit 90?
This is the call details for a specific phone number.
And what is the specific phone number at issue there?
313-516-7046.
Okay, and approximately how many calls were you able to find attributable to that number?
1,816.
And are the vast majority of those calls specific to one particular inmate?
Yes, sir.
And which inmate is that?
Jaylin Brazier.
And are there any exceptions to that? Are there calls to that number associated with other accounts?
Yes, sir. It's 31 of them.
Okay.
18 of those being no audio because the caller hung up, no one answered, no funds on the account, and the other 13 were conversations. One of those being just a voicemail where it's a voicemail box full.
And if you were to go into the Tellmate system again today and try to generate sort of that same report of call detail records to that specific number, would you get a document that looks substantially similar to what's marked as proposed exhibit 90?
Yes. Now, if I run it till today's date, it might change.
Because you might have more calls after the date that this particular report was run?
Right, which was April 24th when I ran this one.
Okay. Your Honor, I move to
2024. Sorry, 2024.
I move to admit proposed exhibit 90.
No objection.
Granted, submitted.
Okay, thank you. And I'm also holding what's been marked as proposed exhibit 91. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
And sir, is this proposed exhibit 91, is that another report of call detail records?
Yes, sir.
And is that a report of sort of like system-wide calls from inmates to a particular number?
Yes, sir.
And what is that particular number?
It's 412-5608. That's 313.
Okay, and approximately how many calls are there to that number during the date range that you ran the report for?
There were 294. 291 of them were from Jaylin Brazier's account. The other 3 were from other inmates. 2 of them had no audio because there's no answer. And then the other one's a conversation, which you're going to be playing today.
Okay. And again, if you were to go into the system today and generate that same sort of report, other than any calls that happened after that date range, would you get a report that looks a lot like that document that you're holding that's marked as proposed exhibit 91?
Yes, sir.
And I move to amend proposed exhibit 91, Your Honor.
No objection.
Submitted.
And in terms of your testimony today, did I ask you to familiarize yourself with 6 particular call recordings?
Yes, sure, you did.
And are those all recordings that you at some point pulled directly from the Telmate system?
Yes, sir.
And is it your understanding that those recordings are all on this particular disk that I have labeled as proposed exhibit 62?
Yes, sir.
And if you were to go back into the Telmate system today and pull those calls, again, those 6 calls, would they be in substantially the same condition as the 6 recordings on this disk that's marked as proposed exhibit 62?
Yes, sir.
Now, how many of these calls, if any, are from the account of Jaylin Brazier?
3.
Okay.
If you call number 22, call 35, and call number 46. Or 43.
Okay. And so there are other calls from a different account?
Yes, sir.
And what numbers were those calls from different accounts to?
The call 01, that was going to be to his mother's account, which is 313-412-5608.
Okay. And in terms of the Telmate system, do you have records to determine whether there's any names associated with particular phone numbers that are being utilized by inmates?
Yes, sir.
And is there any record that you had for the number 313-412-5608?
Yes, sir.
And what was that record?
Angela Milton, when she set up her account, and the deposits are all going to be under that name and that phone number.
Okay. And how about the on this particular disk, are there calls attributable to other inmate accounts to another number?
Yes, sir.
And what's that number?
That'd be the 516-7046 number, 313 area code.
Okay, and again, do you have records in the Telmate system that can tell you whether there's a particular name associated with that number?
Yes, sir.
And what name is associated with that number?
Katrina Smith.
Okay.
As well as deposits.
With that, Your Honor, I move to adjourn proposed exhibit 62.
No objection.
Submitted.
Thank you. May I publish?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to put up the list of files on the screen for purposes of exhibit 62. What sort of information can we glean from these 6 file names? Let's just start with the one at the top, just by way of example. What information is contained within the file name here?
It'll be the inmate's last name where the account the call came from.
So for this first call, who would be the inmate associated with the account that originated the call?
Tiggs, Matthew Tiggs.
Okay, and what's the next row of information? Is that a phone number?
Yes, it'd be the phone number that was dialed by the inmate.
Okay, and then after the phone number, what are the other numbers signify?
It'd be the date and time that the call was made, the time would be military time.
Okay. And in terms of these file names, is that something that you create, or is that system generated when the calls are exported from Telmate?
System generated.
And I want to start with publishing the call that it begins with the number 22. And so looking again at this particular file, which inmate is associated with this phone call?
Brazier.
Okay, and what is the number dialed?
313-516-7046.
And what is the date of the call?
Date's going to be August 9, 2023.
Okay, and I'm going to publish just a brief portion of this, starting at the beginning of the call.
Jaylin Brazier, Wayne County.
An inmate at Wayne County Jail. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. The inmate has requested that you pay for this call. If you don't wish to talk, hang up now. Thank you. Thank you for using Telmate. Hello?
Okay, I'm going to stop at 21 seconds into the call and move forward to approximately 3 minutes and 20 seconds.
I don't know. They said a lot of stuff that I have questions for, but I don't want to ask that over the phone. Like, a lot of shit. I don't know, babe. I can't say anything. I can't ask you certain things because, of course, it's going to be entirely incriminating, and they're going to try to use this against you in the courthouse. Or try to subpoena me again and ask me, what did you ask me?
Hey, stop. Calm down. Relax. Okay? Remember me. No matter what they ask you, you have your choice on you respond to all you, okay? So calm down on that. Outside of anything like that, what other questions do you need to answer for you? I want you to think in your mind that's bothering you.
About the 16-year-old. Who the fuck are they talking about?
It's on time. She asked at the time, because she faked Charlie when I was talking to you, not like the conversation. Okay, when I was dealing with Daria, I was dealing with Daria, she was fake talking. I'm like, bro, I'm busy with this. And they're trying to say, yeah, but it's nothing involving you, baby. Literally. But they're trying to, like, I don't know, but the lawyer, Brian, thought he was like cutting to it. And got it taken off of equipment, and it's not something to be used. So not listening anymore. It's completely pointless.
So they're going to try to use the crunch and we'll keep that against yourself?
No, because that's hypothetical, metaphorical. It's not proven. If you watch it, Brown kind of goes right on talking about all that and everything. So yeah, just watch it in detail what they're saying, and you'll get the gist of what I'm saying. But as far as anything else, we take the recommendation from the attorney.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't want to be a part of none of this shit no more. Like, I really cannot.
That's exactly why you need it. I don't think you should be again. If so, take the advice from the attorney.
I will be.
Like 100%. And then after that, it's done. Yeah.
Like, don't say nothing else. Like, I already know.
Okay, I'm going to stop at 6 minutes and 7 seconds and move on to file number 43 on Exhibit 62. And Local Silver, if we look at file number 43, again, what inmate is associated with the account that originated this particular call?
Brazier.
And what is the number that was dialed?
313-516-7046.
And that's the same one from the last call that we just reviewed?
Yes, sir.
And what's the date of this particular call?
January 25th, 2024.
Okay, and I'm going to publish just the first minute and 30 seconds of this file.
From and paid for by
Jaylin Brazier, Wayne County.
an inmate at Wayne County Jail. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. If you don't wish to talk, hang up now. Thank you for using Telmate. Hello?
Hey, I know you at work. Nothing really new. The judge probably didn't come at me with a plea or something. As far as what the judge is trying to do, not the judge, probably just leaning toward, leaning a lot on the whole little crunch, essentially, and so it was serious things, but there's a lawyer that's probably not much to be worried about. But he said, remember what it was recommended for you to do at freelance?
Yeah.
He said, it's stressing this to you because the prosecutor, it sounded like they were trying to use, yeah, essentially, and how I'm feeling about it, very much it we have to do what the hell was recommended last time.
So basically, he's gonna, if he don't have nothing, they're gonna use me to get you.
That's what it sounded like.
That's what they're trying to do, because obviously...
Okay, I'm going to stop at 1 minute and 32 seconds and move to the file number 35 on Exhibit 62. And if we look at file number 35 again, what's the inmate account that originated this particular call?
Brazier.
And again, what is the number dialed?
The 516 number, 7046 again.
And what's the date of this particular call?
It's going to be January 27th, 2024.
Okay. And I'm going to publish this.
And paid for by
Jaylin Brazier, Wayne County.
an inmate at Wayne County Jail. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. If you don't wish to talk, hang up now. Thank you for using Telmate.
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead from the 17-second mark to approximately 2 minutes and 45 seconds into the call.
No, go ahead, sir.
You watch the movie? for 2 hours, and then that even though we're not together, you still need me to rock with you.
Yeah, that's it. And keep doing what you've been doing. Just, I don't know how we communicate. I don't know each other, shit like that. That's all. And if I do decide to go the whole way with this situation, and just listen to what I'm saying, not in a specific way, of course, but as good as you can, don't be there. You feel me?
Huh?
I said, as good as you can, don't be there. You don't have to be.
Okay.
Yeah, because I just don't want to see you in that predicament again. It just bothers me that first personal situation.
Well, the only option is don't pick up. They're gonna subpoena everybody.
No.
If we can approach.
Sure.
Okay, and just for the record, the call is stopped at the 3 minute and 57. I'm sorry, 3 minute and 56 second mark. And I want to move to the call number 8 on the list. If we look at call number 8, is there a different inmate associated with originating this specific call?
Yes, sir.
And what's that inmate's name?
Turner.
And what is the number dialed in terms of this specific call?
Same number, 313-516-7046.
And what is the date of that call?
December 25th, 2023.
Okay.
And paid for by
Real Turner.
an inmate at Wade County Jail. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. If you don't wish to talk, hang up now. Thank you for using Telmates.
Hello?
Hello?
Hey, I guess you're busy?
No?
Okay, I need to look up something for me, so I can call you when it's something different on today. Look up, the pros and cons, positives and negatives to recanting a statement. That's all I'm wondering. I've been talking to my lawyer about. That's literally all they use against me right now. And probably trying to build a theory off everything, but that's for keep telling the whole thing with the first lawyer. And build off that. I want to see what you think about that. I want to educate myself on it a little more first.
Say it again?
The positives and negatives of recanting a statement in a criminal case. Thank you. What you up to? You still playing there?
Yeah, I'm about to play Dragon Quest Builders.
Oh, I forgot about that motherfucking game. that's one of the big games that you never actually finished, but you're supposed to do. What you do on building this week?
Basically get a bunch more shrines.
Good. Level your heart and shit. You gotta look at the armors and shit like that. I'm telling you, a lot of
I know that's the next thing I need to do. I'm trying to upgrade on my hopes and my stamina.
niggas should get back in the gaming.
He said the positive method of canceling.
Recanting.
Recanting a statement?
In a criminal case. Thank you. I wasn't trying to throw you for a loop earlier with my question or anything. It was more of an emotional question, a survival question. I thought I was a little spontaneous for you.
Yeah.
Where the fuck did he get you questions from, bro? I'm like, no, it's not. It's random. It's just because that random, bro. And I hope I don't fuck up my lineup too. I don't know if I say cricket or if it's crispy. Please don't try to fry me when you see me. Because I'm going to dip on your ass. So what's it saying? That's my shot, so he's still laying down, so it's sick and shit.
Yeah, he underneath me. He ever left my side.
It's a shame, I know my baby 6 feet quiet, cried his tail. And then I have to think, wait for him to just, I'm like, everything closed, you can't go get past
Man. I took his shirt off, wiped it down with a cold rag.
Good.
That's me to chill it out a little bit. But once you get hot again, then I'm like him down again. But he just been asking me for hugs.
Cool. All right, what are you saying? What's it saying?
Pros and cons of changing your domestic violence statement.
Nothing changes. That is something for my situation.
That's what we're talking about.
You know like what my charge is? I do it. Church. Hey, Deshaun. Hey, you want to come play a fair game?
Yeah.
How you guys have a bunch of toys? You tell mommy thank you?
Yeah, my mommy and the piano guy here.
Hello?
Two. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just read it to me, whatever you say.
It's still standing domestic violence stuff.
You sound a little muffled. Edit it and take off the personal aspect of it. Just look up the pros and cons of the candidate statement and all of that. Because, yeah, I prayed, and this is what came to me after I prayed and meditated for a minute. It's like, boop, oh no, maybe this would be a better option.
Stop at 5 minutes and 43 seconds. I'm going to move on to the next call, number 3. If we look at that call, Corporal Solberg, is there a specific inmate associated with originating that call?
Yes, sir.
And what's that inmate's last name?
Manny.
And what's the number dialed for purposes of that call?
Same number, 516-746.
And what's the date of that call?
It's going to be January 27, 2024.
Okay. And, Your Honor, if I could just have one moment to check my notes on this, I just want to make sure that...
Sure.
Could we approach, Judge?
Yes.
Your Honor, as discussed at sidebar, the next call, and again, this is call number 3 on Exhibit 62, contains some discussion I believe Mr. Brown has some objection to, so I just wanted to play it outside the presence of the jury so that we could hash this out.
Sure.
So I'm going to publish basically the first minute, and then
And paid for by
We could turn it down.
an inmate at Wayne County Jail. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. If you don't wish to talk, hang up now. Thank you for using Telmex.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, make sure not to say a name on here, okay? My name is okay, what am I saying? Everything.
You know, it's a phone record, right?
Baby, they have to know what's going on.
so I'm going to publish basically the first minute, and then
And paid for by
We could turn it down.
an inmate at Wayne County Jail. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. If you don't wish to talk, hang up now. Thank you for using Telmex.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, make sure not to say a name on here, okay? My name is okay, what am I saying? Everything.
You know, it's a phone record, right?
Baby, they have to know what's going on. Nothing. What'd you say?
and so that's 35 seconds, and that's just the first portion that I plan on publish, just to show that he's
Trying to deceive.
trying to manipulate, the system, obviously. The second portion starts about 6 minutes into the call.
And to be fair, right after that, there was conversation from this other caller to my client indicating that what his mother said about if he takes the trial. There's a lot of back and forth conversation about that. So we're skipping a great portion of it and kind of taking the conversation out of context, where he's going and making his final statement saying, okay, if I go to trial, then this. And it's after a lot of pressure from this outside influences on multiple people from the family who's indicating how they feel about him going to trial. And I just think that's improper. I mean, the first portion of it is as far as I'm okay with that. But if he's stating that, you know, I'm thinking about not going to trial, or for whatever reason, because people may not want to go to trial for multiple reasons, if they're innocent or not. And I don't believe that particular statement is a confession or any type of admission of guilt if he's just contemplating what other individuals are saying about how they feel about him going to trial. And some of it has to do with whether or not they would come in and the publicity that they're receiving from this particular trial by testifying and having their face broadcasted across the media.
So I guess if, and I can understand that argument, the specific portion that, could we just play the few minutes that I was hoping to publish, just so that we can hear that out, and I guess if we need to backtrack to your whole conversation, we can listen to that. But starting at the 6-minute mark.
You as the rest of the guests, you like, I don't know what the fuck you doing on this shit, bro.
How do you do that?
You know, I mean, like, he's hiding plans to try to use you, okay?
Because all the phone calls, I already know he's been listening.
Like, bro. It's scary. And then some of the things from the crunch, this motherfucker's gonna take it really out of context. Okay? That's the main thing. That's it. Very much. Trying to check those few things. Like I said, I'm gonna come on every Monday. So I'm just giving you something that's not saying. That's all.
It's not going to be a 10. It's not going to be under a 10. And that big plan. But they're not going to present you no 10, no 5 to 10, no 15 to 15, probably 15 to 20. But if they give you 25 years, your mom said negotiate it down and take it. She said do not let your arrogance drive you. She said she doesn't. She's for real.
I know.
She's been crying about this.
I know. Sometimes it's daily gets my head. I get it here going through like this.
Man, you better stick with it.
I am. Whatever it is, I'm going to have to negotiate. So it's 10 or they talk about the 15 shit. This is something, okay? To negotiate something. Literally, I know it's 10, so I don't know yet, okay? Nobody knows. The only thing you know, mom, is what the hell. I was looking after the game I lose. And
yeah.
After this birthday, it's not something I think.
Yep. And taking a trial would be a death wish.
Taking a trial would be a suicide. That's what a death wish would be a suicide.
I think that was the main thing, that taking it to trial would be a suicide.
And Your Honor, that's just highly prejudicial. It contains hearsay of what his mother allegedly told her about his chances of going to trial. And it's definitely going to fairly prejudice my client to the fact where the jury would say, okay, if he's thinking about, negotiating, he must be guilty because if he was innocent, he would even take it. They offered him 1 day. I mean, they could come to that conclusion, Your Honor, and I don't think this is for a proper purpose other than to try to prejudice the jury under the assumption that if my client was contemplating or even listening to negotiating, and this was after a court date where Your Honor, indicated that there are offers for the record, and he's basically letting his girlfriend know that Your Honor asked the prosecutor if there's a particular offer, and he's contemplating, okay, if there's an offer, I might take, 5 to 10 years. But that, in my opinion, is not an admission of guilt. Like I said earlier, there are multiple reasons why individuals would contemplate a plea. In fact, if they could be innocent, Your Honor. So we would ask for this, other than maybe the first portion when he's indicating that, okay, they have to know what's up when his girlfriend is indicating, okay, they're listening on the phone calls. I mean, I guess that would be okay, but everything after that is just highly prejudicial.
Yeah, Judge, I mean, I guess my response is just that I think it's interesting that in this specific call that he, at the outset, he makes clear that he's trying to be deceptive. He's trying to have this more candid conversation that he thinks he can have because he's on another inmate's account, and then he finally gives this candid assessment of what he believes are his chances of trial, and that's that it's a suicide. And I think that strongly goes to his consciousness of guilt and the incredibility of these previous statements that he's made. And so I'm not aware, anyways, of, and I could be wrong on this, that putting in a defendant's own statements about the possibility of contemplating a plea would be inadmissible. It's been a while since I've looked at that case law, but my recollection is that is admissible. I believe it's been admitted before, but I just leave it at that. And
definitely the prejudicial value would highly, highly outweigh any probative value. And the only purpose that Mr. Elsey would like this portion of the phone call to be entered is to prejudice the jury to say that, if he was innocent, there's no way in the world he would even contemplate for even a half a second about negotiating for a plea. And that's, Your Honor, that's just untrue. In multiple cases, there could be a plethora of reasons why an individual would contemplate negotiating. He didn't say that, oh, I want to plead guilty because I'm guilty. If he said that, like, oh, I'm guilty, I want to plead guilty, I don't care, I don't want to go to trial. But if he's weighing the pros and cons and saying, okay, I want to at least negotiate to see what they have to have, because they're trying to use a lot of things out of context against me that are untrue, and it could have an appearance of feeling a certain way that is not. And I understand that as a rational individual, so at least let me hear a possible negotiation, because I understand what the prosecutor's doing, trying to flip my words and trying to flip things out of context, and they're doing that right now, which is very request. They're trying to flip his words and take them out of context in an attempt to prove his guilt. So that just confirms his fear of proceeding for these particular actions that have been persistent since the onset of the
Maybe
case.
you have any authority one way or the other you could cite?
I don't have it at the top of my hand, Your Honor, but if the court wanted to give me a few minutes, I could try to find some. 'Cause I know I have looked into this issue before. I just
Yeah,
I
it
don't
would
have
be
that.
nice to have a little bit of guidance. I mean, in the civil context, offers of compromise are admissible. This is obviously not that sort of stuff.
Right. I mean, under 408, I mean that applies to confidential settlement communications.
Right.
But that, I think we're not in the territory
No, I
of
know,
confidential.
but we're certainly in a position where somebody's trying to figure out, you know, there's a number of different reasons why people do things, right? I mean, they may try to limit exposure, understanding that, you know, even though they may plead their innocence, you know, they think that there's maybe a chance to be convicted. They want to limit exposure. So I think they need a little bit of authority before they make a decision.
Okay. I guess I don't want to hold us up. So what I propose is that I just be able to publish that first 36 seconds of the call discussing the sort of scheming about using the other inmate's account, and I'll forego the rest of it.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Exhibit 62, I'm now going to publish roughly the first 36 seconds of call number 3.
And paid for by an inmate at Wayne County Jail. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. If you don't wish to talk, hang up now. Thank you for using Telmate.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, make sure not to say my name on your record. My name is okay, what am I saying? Everything.
You're going to this phone record, right?
They have to know what's going on. Trust me. What she said.
Okay, and stopping at the 36-second mark. And then moving to the final call on the list, call number 1. Who is the inmate associated with the account that originated this call? And what is the number dialed here?
412-5608. They were very good.
Okay, and that's different from the other numbers, I mean, the other number on the other calls, is that correct? Okay, what was the date of this particular call?
March 20, 2024.
Okay, and I'm going to publish that exhibit, or that call, rather, call number 1, starting
This is a call from
Wayne County.
an inmate at Wayne County Jail. This call is subject to recording and monitoring. The inmate has requested that you pay for this call. Press 1 to accept all communications from this inmate. Thank you for using Telmate.
Just don't try to make my name up here, but you can see what you're talking about now.
Yeah,
So I said, what's going on?
nothing else, just,
So you hear me? Look, this is my phone call, so you can just tell me what was said. Essentially.
you know the first happening situation?
Mm-hmm.
And so, that they were, they came over there.
You say who came over there?
They came over there to eat your car and food and go.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Okay, remember what, I was having a conversation, and, he was right there, and, he was there, and, I was saying how the
And
family.
essentially, okay, I understand. Something was said, maybe something was shared, and so I guess in the case, like somebody made a mistake or whatever. So this we talk about these.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. When figure out. They already went over that and everything. If I paperwork everything, tell him to stick to what he said when they don't win a DVD. It's literally said that he said he knew nothing about anything, nothing at all. The prosecutor wants to try to make, well, I assume so, try to make him go back what he did. But I asked if y'all do anything or something like that, and just no. That's all you got to do. That's my lawyer said, just no. Just stick to that. He said, the only thing I have on D is his, and when he went to DC for whatever interrogation, whatever the hell. And just no, nothing. I'm never talking about it, never texting, nothing like that, okay? The same for you. There's nothing. I have all my discoveries on. I have all my discoveries, literally. And just nothing like that. Go ahead.
You know how for that about your his crazy office here.
If you could pause.
Yeah,
Yeah, keep your approach.
Okay, and just for the record, call number 1 is stopped at the 3 minutes and 5 second mark. And I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
No questions.
Any questions from the jury?
Could you tell the jury what you do for a living?
I'm a detective with the Detroit Police Department.
And how long have you been employed with the Detroit Police Department overall?
Over 15 years.
And how long have you been in your current role with the Detroit Police
About 4 years.
And what is your current role with the Detroit Police Department?
A detective in the homicide unit.
And as part of your role as a detective with the homicide unit, were you involved with the investigation into the disappearance of Zion Foster?
I was.
And what was the scope of your involvement in connection with that investigation?
I was officer in charge.
And what does it mean to be the officer in charge of a particular investigation?
So essentially, when we do a homicide investigation, it's a group effort. There's several investigators. I'm the one that pretty much is given all the information that's been gathered and organized and go forward with charges.
Okay. And prior to the investigation in this case, have you worked on other homicide investigations?
I have.
Is there anything in particular about this case that you would say is like a distinguishing feature compared to other homicide cases you worked
Yes.
on prior to this?
Yes.
And what would be that distinguishing feature?
There's no body.
Okay. And during the course of the investigation, did you probe or look into the possibility that Zion was still alive?
Yes.
And what sort of steps did you take to investigate whether she was still alive?
I contacted morgues, hospitals.
And in terms of contacting morgues and hospitals, did you find any information relevant to the investigation?
No.
Did you look into international travel records?
I did.
And how do you go about doing that?
I contacted, I don't have an agent's name, but it was someone through the FBI.
Okay, and were you able to find any sort of useful information suggesting Zion had traveled abroad?
No.
Did you look into getting records from Zion's social media accounts?
I did.
And what sort of accounts were you able to get records from?
Instagram, TikTok, I believe that's it.
And in terms of obtaining those records, what's the process that you have to go through to obtain records from social media accounts?
So myself or someone on the team will draft a search warrant. So a search warrant, you type all your probable cause and you will submit it to the company. The company will, it's signed by a judge, the company will then in some type of portal or email, but they'll give you a return and that'll have all the information for the account.
Okay, and I'm holding what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 63. It's a certified copy of certain Instagram records, and I would just move for that to be admitted under Michigan Rule of Evidence 902 subsection 11.
No objection.
Right, so
Thank you.
this is 63.
63, correct. And I'm just going to publish that exhibit briefly. If we look at the documents in Exhibit 63, do you see on page 1 there's a name here? Oh, I'm sorry. Looking at my, I just forgot to plug it in. I'm sorry. Okay, page 1. There's a particular name here.
Yes.
Is there any significance with respect to that name?
That was the Instagram handle, if you will, provided by Sierra Milton.
Okay, and so that's when you requested records, are you requesting records for that particular name?
Yes.
Okay. And if we go to page 17, let's let's start with page 13. Do you see the photo depicted on page 13?
Yes.
Do you see the date under that photo?
Yes.
What's that date say there?
December 14th, 2021.
Okay. And so that would be how long approximately before Zion's disappearance?
Of close proximity.
Okay. And same if we go to page 17. Do you see the date under that photo on page 18?
It's the same date, December 14th, 2021.
Okay. And did you have an opportunity to review sort of the entirety of these records that were obtained?
I did.
And did you see any evidence of Instagram activity attributable to Zion after January 5th of 2022?
Not Zion.
Okay. You heard Bertez Gonzalez testify about using her account.
Correct.
At some point. Was there evidence associated with that in these records?
Yes.
And would that just be limited to January 5th of
Correct.
2022? Okay. Did you also obtain information about Zion's bank account from her?
I did.
Her mother? And did you do any sort of search warrant to obtain bank account records?
I did. I offered 2 search warrants, one in the beginning of the investigation and then one, I believe it was about 6 months in, to see if there was any banking, any type of transactions.
Okay. And did you obtain records back on those search warrants?
I did.
And what was the purpose of looking to see if there was any record of transactions in those records?
If there was any transactions coming from Zion.
Okay. And I'm holding what's been marked as proposed at 64 and 65, which are certified copies of banking records. And I would move for both of those to be admitted again under 902 subsection 11.
No objection.
All right. Which particular 64 and 65 are these different banks?
They're records that were drawn at that were produced at different times. So I can give you a.
So the same bank, just 2 different.
Same bank account, 2 different search warrant returns.
Okay.
Is that description correct?
Correct.
Is that good? And did you look in terms of the first set of records that you obtained? Did you notice anything when you reviewed those records?
That the activity stopped on January 4th of 2022.
Okay, and then when you obtained the this second set of records, did you see any new activity after January 4th, 2022?
I did. I don't recall the exact date, but it had been some time later. I thought that was of significance. So also on the account for the particular bank account, Sierra Melton, Zion's mom, was on that account. So I reached out to her and she confirmed that she had made, I believe it was a deposit into that account.
Okay, and how many transactions, I guess, was that after January 4th, 2020?
Just one.
Just one, okay. And you looked into that, and
Correct.
Was there any sense that that could show that Zion was still alive based on your findings?
No.
Okay. Did you look into obtaining records from Google accounts associated with the defendant?
I did.
And I want to publish what's been already admitted as Exhibit 18. Looking at this document, are you familiar with this particular document?
I am.
And where did this document come from, if you will?
This was generated from the Google return, which is given to us when we do a search warrant, and this is what information we get back from the company.
Okay, and if we go down to page 8, do you see the bottom 2 rows there? Starting with the one at the bottom, what does that indicate?
The one where your cursor is?
Yes.
It's a search for our trash trucks, also compactors.
Okay. And we've already heard testimony about this particular search and the timing of that, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. If we go up to page 7, what is the search reflected there toward the middle of page 7?
How do the police track your phone?
And what's the date associated with that search?
January 7th, 2022.
Okay. And how about the next search above that? What's the search reflected there?
How do the police track missing people's phones?
And what's the date reflected for that search?
January 7th, 2022.
Okay. And We go up to page 3. What's the search reflected here?
Can the police take my phone without a warrant?
And what's the date reflected for that search?
January 7th, 2022.
Now, during the course of the investigation, as the officer in charge, did any information come to you about an eyewitness in this case?
No.
Okay, so was any eyewitness ever identified?
No.
Other than the video that's been admitted in court, has any other relevant video been identified to you as the officer in charge of this case?
No.
Are you aware of any other relevant video?
No.
There was some testimony about the searches of the defendant's residence back in January of 2022. When those searches were conducted, starting with the first one on January 16th, were you involved in the case at that point, on January 16th,
No.
2022? Okay. And when is it that you became specifically involved in the case?
I believe it was the 18th is when I was told I was going to be the OIC.
Okay. And throughout your role as the officer in charge, have you familiarized yourself with both the photos from that original search and the evidence that was recovered from that
Yes.
search? And other than what was presented in court, was there anything that you're aware of that was relevant that was recovered during that search?
No.
There were some photos of some devices at the residence. Do you remember those?
Yes.
Were all the devices in this case attempted to be forensically analyzed in some way?
Yes.
And other than what we've seen presented in court from any sort of forensic extraction of phones or other devices, is there anything else that you're aware of that would be material to the case?
No.
Okay. There was some discussion about laboratory analysis that was done in this case.
Yes.
And in particular, some discussion about a toothbrush attributable to Zion Foster.
Yes.
What was the purpose of submitting that toothbrush to the lab again?
So because this is kind of a different case, we would typically, when you have a body, you would receive blood drawn at the morgue. Since we don't have a body, we had to use a different reference sample, such as a toothbrush, to get DNA.
Okay, and so in a typical case, the morgue blood would then be the sort of reference sample for the victim?
Yes.
Okay, and we didn't have that here, obviously.
Correct.
There was some testimony about, I guess, certain things being submitted or not submitted from the search of the defendant's vehicle. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And were you involved in sort of the process of determining which items were to be submitted to the lab versus which items would not be submitted to the lab?
I had a part in it. I believe the first lab report was authored by a trooper who was also involved in the case. We were all briefed of the case of what was going on. The indication from the dog was that there was a hit on either side of the trunk and nothing really focused in the middle. And then later, while we still had all the evidence from the trunk, speaking with the Zion's mother, that none of the items looked familiar to belong to Zion.
Okay, and so is that what you just mentioned? Does that inform sort of why certain things were submitted and certain things were not submitted?
Correct. The liner was a big indication of where the dog indicated on, so we sent that off to be the most prominent.
Okay, and you mentioned the first lab. I think you said lab report, but you mean lab submission?
Correct. Lab submission.
And so what is a lab submission? Can you help us understand, I guess, what that is?
So it's a form that our department utilizes, and it's sent to the Michigan State Police lab. So we have a list of other officers have talked about Tracker. It's our evidence system. So all of our evidence is in one system. We put evidence in. It's down in our property section, and then we also take it out, and we will submit this form, and we will give a brief synopsis of what we're looking for, what occurred, and what we're trying to find with the evidence provided.
Okay, and you mentioned there was a trooper involved in the initial laboratory submission, is that correct?
Correct.
And when you say trooper, what do you mean by that?
Michigan State Police Trooper Stephanie Chang,
Okay, and
who
is there
was a part of Homicide Task Force.
and is there a reason behind having a Michigan State Police trooper handle a laboratory submission?
I won't say it goes faster, but they are familiar with the process. They are familiar with, some of them are, I can't recall if Trooper Chang was an evidence certified to do evidence recoveries, but the process seems to go faster
Okay.
because they're familiar.
And in terms of the lab, when you make a laboratory submission, does the Detroit Police Department have its own sort of forensic crime laboratory?
No.
And who administers the forensic crime laboratory in the state of Michigan?
Who?
Which agency is responsible for that?
Michigan State Police.
Okay. Other than the phone that was admitted as Exhibit 85 from Zion, were any other devices ever located from Zion Foster?
No.
And I want to ask you about a couple of items that have been admitted into evidence already. You heard some testimony from Detective Markle and Detective Franti about a specific phone that was extracted after the defendant's arrest. Is that correct?
Yes.
And in terms of the overall extraction for that phone, did you have an opportunity to review that yourself?
I did.
And did you familiarize yourself with some of the content on that phone?
I did.
I want to show you first what's been marked as Exhibit 74. Are you familiar with what this report depicts?
Yes.
And in terms of the row number 1, there's a particular file name. What is that file name?
Ebony Banks .mp4.
Now, in the phone extraction, did you familiarize yourself with that particular file?
I did.
And what is that? What type of file is that? Is that a video, a document?
It's a video.
And did you watch the video?
I did.
And could you just describe briefly what that video depicts?
In the entirety, it appears to be a rape type video.
Objection. This is speculation. Her opinion of a video that's obviously on the internet, and she's characterizing what her opinion of it is. Right? I think that's highly inappropriate.
Okay. Mr. Elsey?
I mean, I think
She
we
just
went over this.
offered, she said she's viewed it and she's offering her opinion about what it is. She saw it in person. Over.
Okay. And just to be clear, we're going to talk about 2 videos, correct? And I'm going to lead a bit here just because I want to avoid an objection. Do these videos depict actors?
Correct.
They're not like real videos depicting real violence, is that
Correct.
But this first video entitled Ebony Banks, what does that video depict in terms of the actors?
So I could tell there was like takes in one part of the video. They're almost pretending to be driving, and you can clearly see in the window there's no movement. It is a posed as a younger black female in a short skirt. Appears to be walking. A black male approaches her in the car and offers her a ride. The dialogue is they know each other. They know each other from family friends, from the neighborhood. She agrees somewhat hesitantly, and she gets in the car. And like I said, it was to appear that they were driving, although they were parked. So I could tell this was some acting. They're sitting in the car as if they're driving. He's supposed to be driving her home. An argument ensues. He takes her head. She's sitting in the passenger seat. He's in the driver's seat. He takes her head and bashes her head onto the passenger door on the inside, and she appears to pass out. It's cut away at some point. The next scene that you see, he has her over his shoulder, and we're in some type of room with backlighting. It's just a bed. She's knocked out. She appears to be knocked out. He puts her on the bed. In the meantime, he's manifesting. She appears that she's not awake. He's manifesting and saying something to the effect of, I'll teach you a lesson. Something to that effect.
Is there sexual activity at that point?
It appears that while she's unconscious, sexual intercourse is happening, and she is unawake. She's not awake. At some point, she does wake up, and she's trying to tell him to stop. And again, actors, she's, saying no and putting her hand away from him, but it appears that it's not as incredibly forceful as.
And how about the second video on Exhibit 74? Did you review that video as well?
Unfortunately, yes.
And just briefly and relevant part, what does that video contain?
Same type of video. This is a white female and 2 white males. There is a female white actor in the beginning, and they're all calling her mom. The brothers, the posed brothers, are some type of stepbrother. She's the stepsister. They refuse to let her leave, and again, depict rape-style intercourse, and call her a slut, a tramp, some things to those effects, and then the mom, the supposed mom, comes home, and she's clearly crying, and they're holding her down to say, "Don't say anything."
And I want to ask you also about something that's been submitted as Exhibit 86. Again, for these 2 files that are depicted here, what types of files are these? Are these documents or are these films?
Documents.
And did you have an opportunity to review these particular documents on the overall phone extraction?
I did.
And again, just if you could briefly summarize, what do those documents depict?
These appear to be Asian comic books. The first one was titled, the Untitled 12 PDF was titled Rape of, I assume, some character.
Objection. This is speculation. I mean, there's no evidence that this particular Untitled 12 depicts what she's saying. It sounds like she's speculating as to what the title is, because obviously she doesn't remember.
Judge, again, we went over this in pretrial motions. We're not going to show the actual comic books for obvious reasons, but I believe that her testimony is describing what she viewed when she actually reviewed these. And again, you said these are 2 comic books, is that correct?
Correct.
Is there a theme to these comic books?
Yes.
What is that theme?
Rape.
Okay. And are these pornographic in nature?
Yes.
There was some testimony from Katrina Smith, you recall?
Yes.
And at some point, were you asked to subpoena her as a witness for this trial?
I was.
Were you able to subpoena her?
No.
What sort of efforts did you make to try to subpoena her?
Went to her house several times, phone calls, text messages, left my business card on her vehicle as well as my partner's to reach out.
Okay. At some point, was she detained on something called a witness detainer?
She was.
Okay. And was she released pretty much immediately on that after being detained?
Yes.
And since then, has she been cooperative?
Yes.
Okay. There was some discussion about her previous testimony. Had she testified previously at a hearing before?
Yes.
And what hearing was that?
At the exam, preliminary exam in August of 2023.
Okay. And did she appear willingly under a subpoena at the point of that exam?
Yes.
There was some testimony about some sort of CPS claim being made, and I believe she made the allegation that the defense raised the issue that she was blackmailed into testifying. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Was there any sort of CPS complaint made with respect to Ms. Smith?
There was.
And who made that complaint?
I did.
And when did you make that complaint?
I believe it was July 7th of 2023.
And why did you make that complaint?
When I was reviewing jail calls, as one typically does to a defendant, I overheard a phone call that was, I believe, June 23rd of 2023. There was a conversation between Katrina Smith and Jaylin Brazier, and you can hear kids in the background. The defendant is telling her to tell them to be quiet and then to pop them. There's a conversation of her yelling at the kids. Then you hear, hold on. Then you hear what appears to be loud thumping or smacking noises, and then the children screaming, or child screaming.
And when you come into possession of information of that nature, can you just sit on that?
No.
Do you have any sort of obligations to make a report at that point?
Yes.
And is that why you made a report?
Yes.
Did you make a report to try to blackmail her, coerce her into testifying in this case? Did that report have anything to do with her testimony in this case?
No.
And did anything come of that report that you're aware of?
No.
Okay. So she was never charged. She was never. Obviously, your kids are still with her, correct?
Correct.
Were you involved in the landfill search that was described by Sergeant Jones and a forensic technician, Felicia Jackson?
It was.
And what was your sort of involvement in that search?
Similar to what Sergeant Jones had explained for the day-to-day. We would get there, suit up, be briefed, suit up, and then be transported to the top of the hill, just like she explained, digging in the hole, putting it in the trash truck, bringing it over, dumping, sifting through with metal rakes, break for lunch, get decontaminated, and then start again for the afternoon shift. I also, because it was under a search warrant, someone had to be there at all times, so I stayed until the overnight security could make it to the location.
Okay, and was the area secured during the time of the search?
Yes.
I want to ask, specific to one of the charges in this case concerning tampering with evidence, what's the, when a murder case is initiated, what's the first hearing at which evidence is presented?
An exam.
Okay, and if there is a murder victim, would there typically be some evidence at an exam about the cause and manner of that individual's death?
Yes.
And would that typically be in the form of a medical examiner's report?
Correct.
When it comes to the charge of murder, do you have some familiarity with that charge through other cases that you've worked on?
Yes.
And is it your understanding that that charge is punishable by more than 10 years?
Correct.
But I would object. He's asking her to reach a legal conclusion.
I mean, it's an element of the offense, Your Honor. I have to
Right.
get it out
Is there
there.
stipulation that the underlying offense is more than 10 years?
Possibly. Yeah.
Or over?
Okay. You also heard some testimony about this concept of a seizure has come up throughout the trial. Is that correct?
Correct.
When was the first time that phrase got injected into this case, seizure?
At the exam in August of 2023 from Vertez Gonzalez, Zion's boyfriend.
Okay, and at the exam, did he testify consistent with his description at this particular trial?
Yes.
And that was that he saw Zion essentially pass out for a couple of seconds?
Correct.
Okay. And are you aware of any evidence throughout this case of the defendant claiming that Zion had a seizure?
No.
You've got sort of the defendant's browsing history from multiple sources, is that correct?
Correct.
That would include Google records?
Yes.
That would include phone dumps from back in January 2022 and also from June of 2023?
Correct.
Have you had an opportunity to familiarize yourself with some of that browsing activity?
Yes.
Are you aware of any browsing activity suggesting that he searched the internet or visited web pages inquiring about why a young woman might die suddenly?
No.
In terms of Dr. Glavity's testimony yesterday, there was a reference to her having summaries of 4 statements. Do you recall that? What did you send Dr. Glavity for her sort of review in connection with this case?
So in order to avoid any type of confusion, I did a summary of the video, which included audio of the first interview in January of 2022. The written statement that was signed in also the same day in January of 2022. And the interview with Lieutenant Lalone, which was the following day, and then a recap summary of the interview that happened with Sergeant Sullivan in June of 2023.
Okay, and did you also send her some medical records?
I did.
And was there ever a second set of medical records that was obtained in this case, or did you just have one set?
No, just the one.
Okay, and how did you obtain those records?
Through a search warrant.
Okay, and who was that search warrant directed to?
Henry Ford Health System.
Okay. In connection with those records, I just want to publish briefly Exhibit 56, and looking at page 2, where it says that the date of birth. Whose date of birth is that?
Zion.
And what's the date of birth?
November 20th, 2004.
And as far as you're aware from the investigation, is that date of birth accurate?
Correct.
And throughout the investigation, do you have records to booking information and other sources of information about the defendant's date of birth?
Yes.
And what is his date of birth?
8/10/98.
Okay, so what's the age gap there?
About 6 years.
Okay. There was earlier today some discussion about Exhibit 62. Do you see the top file here, the phone number
Yes.
that's reflected there? You heard Corporal Solberg indicate there was somebody named Angela Milton associated with that number.
Correct.
Throughout the course of the investigation, have you had any sort of contact with an Angela Milton?
I have.
And who is Angela Milton?
The defendant's mother.
Okay. At various points in time throughout this case, has there been media attention?
A lot.
Was there media attention back in January of 2022?
Yes.
Was there media attention back in connection with the landfill search
Yep.
that's going on? Again, remind me, when did the landfill search conclude?
October of 2023.
Okay, and was that something that was publicly reported?
Yes.
I want to take you to what's been admitted as Exhibit 83, and specifically a call ending 947.
For a collect call, press 0. Thank you for using GTS.
Big major. Still waiting. But
And I'm going to set that to 6 minutes and 55 seconds.
hey, yeah, still waiting. But so I'm 6. Are you okay? First off.
Yes, I'm fine.
Okay. Is it anything major?
So,
What? Hello?
huh?
Yeah. Is it anything like the one major thing it could be? Is it major? Okay.
I want to ask you, in early October of 2022, was there one major thing that could have happened at that time that could have impacted the investigation?
This calls for speculation on what my client could have been talking about, Your Honor. He's asking her to speculate.
I'm not asking her to speculate what his client was talking about. I think that speaks for itself. I'm asking her the simple question of what was the major thing going on in the investigation in October 2022. Was there one major thing in October 2022 that could have impacted the investigation?
Yes.
And what was that?
The landfill search was coming to an end.
Okay. And so had Zion's body been discovered, would that have impacted the investigation?
No, it had not been discovered, and yes, that would have made a big impact on the investigation.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Good morning, Detective.
Good morning.
Now, you indicated that you became the OIC approximately around the 18th of January?
I believe so.
Okay. So you didn't participate in the initial search of the house?
No.
Okay. But you were aware of some of the things that were of interest that were to be sought out, correct?
The search warrant was on the 17th.
Okay. You were aware of some of the items that your department was seeking, correct?
I don't believe we were involved yet.
Okay. So Detroit Police was not involved in the investigation when the search warrant was executed?
I don't believe that DPD was handling the case at that particular moment.
Okay. You did hear testimony from Detective Sergeant Jones, correct?
Correct.
Who indicated that at that particular time she was involved in the execution of the search warrant in the search of that particular house, correct?
I don't believe on the 17th. I think that was later.
Okay. You did hear her testify to that, correct?
That she was involved in the search warrant?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I believe she indicated that you were involved in the investigation at least around that particular time?
Yeah. Around that time, correct.
Okay. And you were aware that Mr. Brazier stated that there was a jar of marijuana under the table, correct?
Yes, I remember that.
Okay. Do you know if that was ever found?
No.
Okay, that was never located?
No.
Okay. If I can have the HDMI stretch this far. And I am publishing exhibit number 23. You are familiar with the photographs that were taken from the house on Greenfield that belongs to Mr. Brazier, correct?
Correct.
And you would state that these particular photos, in fact, come from that particular search, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And this appears to be a table, correct?
Yes.
The living room table. And you see an orange jar to the right of that Nintendo?
I see something with an orange color with white label.
With the orange, okay. And Mr. Brazier, in fact, indicated that he had an orange jar of marijuana under the table, correct?
Correct.
And you would agree that this particular item is consistent with what Mr. Brazier said that he had under the table that contained marijuana, correct?
Looking at this picture, I can't tell what that is. I wasn't at the search warrant, so I
Okay.
can't.
And Judge, I'm just going to object because this search was days before he made that statement. So I think this question isn't appropriate.
Did you? I think it's very important. If I can follow up.
I think it.
Okay. And you were able to view these photographs, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And this photographs came from the search, correct?
The initial search
From the initial search.
on the 17th.
Did you ever realize or notice this particular item on the table?
I did not.
You did not? Okay. So of course you didn't send anybody else to go back to the house and say, hey, this may be this particular item that was mentioned by Mr. Brazier, right?
Well, there was a secondary search warrant done on the house, and I believe that's what you're referring to, where Sergeant Jones was at that search warrant.
Okay. And at any time, did you instruct Sergeant Jones or any other individuals working with law enforcement to look for this particular item that's depicted in this particular photograph?
No.
You did not? Okay.
After this point of the search warrant, because there was so much media attention, there's news media footage of several people going in and out of this house.
Okay.
After that search warrant.
Okay, but wouldn't it be pertinent to, I guess, quarantine the particular house, or at the very least, gather all the evidence that could be of value prior to letting anybody inside the house? That would be pertinent, correct?
Well, I wasn't at that secondary search warrant, and after his statements and the secondary search warrant was done, if that was still there, it would have been collected.
You say if it was this, but you don't know whether or not it was there.
I wasn't there.
Okay, because you don't know if you didn't know it was there in the first place, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you had an opportunity to review some footage from the dumpster that was located off of Woodward, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm publishing what is omitted as, I believe, exhibit number 46. And I am starting at approximately 35 minutes and 4 seconds, which is January 6, 2022, Thursday at 14:54. And you had an opportunity to view this video, correct?
Correct, but the timestamp is,
Okay. See,
I believe Sergeant Ford testified that the timestamp was a different time.
it was a different time, correct?
Correct.
But he did indicate, if we can watch the video right here, if you're looking at the video, he did indicate that this particular, I guess, footage, in your opinion, is Mr. Brazier allegedly coming back to the scene. Would that be fair?
No, sir, I never said that.
Okay.
You say the vehicle?
Yes.
The vehicle is not consistent with his car.
Okay. So at this time, this is not consistent with Mr. Brazier returning to the scene, correct?
His phone put him there at that particular time.
Okay. So at no point in time did you indicate or felt that this particular footage depicted Mr. Brazier coming back to the scene, correct?
Besides two pieces of evidence where someone approaches a dumpster in the same area where he said that he put her body, and then his phone also putting him at that location.
So just to be clear, you're saying that no video footage would show Mr. Brazier's car, from your observation, returning to the scene, correct?
Can you state that again?
From your observation, there's no video footage that you personally saw that would indicate Mr. Brazier returning to the scene the day after, on the 6th, correct?
Besides this video?
Any video. Are you saying that this video depicts it? Yes or no? I'm trying to be clear.
Well, the timestamp of a vehicle and someone approaching a dumpster in connection with his phone putting him at the same exact location.
Okay, we'll forward a little bit. If you could watch the video. Now, Detective, you would agree that this portion of the video was shown to Sergeant Ford, and then he was also shown the phone records that suggested that Mr. Brazier returned in the general vicinity of this area, correct?
I believe that that's what he said.
Okay. And you would agree that this was the vehicle that was shown to, I guess, suggest that this was Mr. Brazier, correct? Remember that, correct?
That it could be him.
That it could be him,
Yeah.
correct? Okay. And you've spoken to Sergeant Ford prior to him testifying, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you've spoken to Mr. Elsey prior to him asking those questions about Sergeant Ford about this particular vehicle, correct?
Yes.
And after all those conversations, this particular video was shown to the jury in an attempt to suggest that this was Mr. Brazier's car, correct?
I don't believe that was indicated.
Okay, but this particular vehicle was shown, correct?
The video was shown.
The video of this particular vehicle was shown to Sergeant Ford, correct?
Yes.
Okay. This particular segment of the clip, correct?
Correct.
Okay. There was not another segment of this video that was shown depicting January the 6th, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you had an opportunity to review this particular video, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did you feel it could be Jaylin Brazier's car?
From what I remember from the description of his car and seeing photos, evidence photos, he had dark rims, and that's not consistent with that.
Okay, I would agree to that, but nevertheless, after those conversations that you had with Sergeant Ford and the prosecution, this particular video was shown to the jury, suggesting that this could be Jaylin Brazier's car.
I think the suggestion was that a vehicle showed up at the same time. He could have been in the passenger seat. He could have been in the back seat. He could have just drove by.
Oh, okay. That was an ask of Sergeant Ford, though, correct? Would agree with that, right?
Well, it is possible at the same exact time his phone puts him there that a vehicle shows up at the dump site.
Okay.
Exactly around the same time.
Okay. Now, you stated that you, I guess, took part in the search of this particular vehicle, correct? Of Jaylin Brazier's vehicle, of the trunk area.
I did not.
Okay, but you had some input in as far as what was collected and what was sent off to the Michigan State Police for further analysis, correct?
So like I said before, it's a team effort, so there's several factors. So like the dog indicating on the trunk.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. I understand that. I'm as far as sending the evidence off to the Michigan State Police for further analysis, you took part in that, yes?
Correct.
Okay. And you also had a voice in what particular items were analyzed. For instance, if a particular item was used with luminol to detect the presence of a bodily fluid, correct?
So you start with your best evidence first, which was the trunk liner.
Okay. You took part in deciding which particular items were tested with luminol, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Luminol, as far as the liner, so I don't do anything with the technical part.
Okay, fair enough. You had a voice in deciding which particular items were actually tested with luminol, whether they were or were they not, correct?
I don't determine. I let a forensic scientist. I tell the story of what happened,
Okay.
what we're asking for.
Okay, but you could give a suggestion and say, hey, let's test this, or let's not test that. You have that authority, correct?
I could give suggestions on a lot of things, but I'm not an expert as forensic science.
Detective, it's a simple question. You had the authority to give a suggestion, correct?
I can fill out a form and put my story and say, this is what the evidence, this is the evidence that we got.
Okay. So, yes or no? Can you tell whatever forensic tech is on the particular scene and say, hey, I think we should test this particular cloth, this particular hat, or whatever is found in the trunk? You have that authority, correct?
Yes, I
Okay.
list the evidence.
Okay, thank you. And you were aware that there were multiple items that were found in this particular trunk, correct? As far as clothing and everything, correct? Okay. And you knew that these particular items were not laid out on the ground and individually tested with luminol and or alternative light source. You knew that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You could have suggested that each particular item was removed from the trunk and tested with luminol and an alternative light source. You had the authority to do that, correct? To make the suggestion, correct?
Again, it's a team effort, so I have to rely on experts. Is the FBI, a canine? I have other people because I'm not an expert in every field.
Detective, you had the authority to give a suggestion that this particular, every item is removed from the trunk and tested with luminol and or an alternative light source, correct?
I guess you could say I could do that. I could make a suggestion.
Okay, are you sure?
I have to fill out a form with evidence, and I give to a forensic scientist and tell the story of what we recovered.
Okay. You were the officer in charge at the time this trunk was searched, correct?
I have to remember the date of the day the trunk was searched.
Okay.
Possibly, I think it was the 20th, the 19th.
And you said you became the officer in charge on 18th,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
So it'd be fair that you were the officer in charge when this trunk was searched, correct?
Yes.
And as the officer in charge, you're in charge, correct?
Yes.
And the FBI were there in a supportive capacity, correct?
Correct.
They weren't calling the shots and telling you what to do on how to run your investigation, correct?
Correct.
It was the other way around. You were telling them how you wanted the investigation ran, correct?
Well, just as much as I can suggest things, they can suggest things to me.
Okay, so you can suggest things, correct? Just to be clear.
Yes.
Okay. And you didn't suggest that these particular items be individually searched for luminol, correct?
No.
Okay. Is there a particular reason why you didn't?
Again, we rely on a team of what people are going to give information that is the most valuable to generate evidence.
And in the team setting, in most team settings, there's a coach or somebody who's in authority of the other team members, correct?
Yes.
And in this particular situation, you were that authority, correct?
Yes.
You were that coach, correct?
Yes.
And they were looking to you for leadership as what's the next step on how they should do certain things, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you were present at the preliminary examination, correct?
Correct.
And you heard testimony from Vertez that he witnessed Zion have a seizure in front of his face before, correct?
Yes.
And he also testified that he had known that she had previous seizures, correct?
Correct.
You heard that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. At no point in time did you ever ask the doctor, the medical examiner, to, I guess, give a different opinion incorporating that particular information, did you?
I did not.
Okay. You never went to the hospital or tried to find if, in fact, she was on seizure medication, did you?
Go to the hospital?
Oh, yes. Or check the medical records or anything?
That's what I did when I obtained a search warrant.
Oh, so you checked the medical records?
I reviewed the medical records
reviewed them?
along with the...
Okay. So if you reviewed their medical records, you heard at the preliminary examination, the doctor indicated that she did not know Zion was taking antidepressants. You remember that, correct?
Yes.
Never did you correct her and pull it to the side and say, hey, I have additional information that you don't know, that I know that Zion was taking antidepressants. You never did that, did you?
No.
Okay. Nor did you ask her to formulate a different opinion, including that particular information that she was on medication for antidepressants.
I did not. Okay.
Did you personally know that she was on antidepressants after your reviewing of the medical records?
After reviewing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And when did you come to that knowledge that she was taking antidepressants, approximately?
After the return came back from the search warrant?
Okay, so prior to the testimony of the doctor at the exam, correct?
You said prior?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And as part of the officer in charge, as part of law enforcement, is to be, I guess, as transparent as possible in revealing all the facts, correct?
Yes.
But despite that, a doctor didn't have crucial information. You sat there and listened to her say she did not know it and never...
Objection to the word crucial. I'm trying to understand how Zion Foster being on the lowest dosage possible of a harmless antidepressant is a crucial part of this case. How this is relevant at all, frankly.
I believe it's very relevant. Thank you. So, despite the doctor testifying to having no knowledge of her taking antidepressants, you sat there in silence, never bringing it to her attention up until now, that in fact Zion was under or taking antidepressants, correct?
I provided her with the medical records. Her opinion is going to be off what is in the medical records.
Okay. And you indicated that you reviewed the medical records upon receipt of the return, which predated the exam, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And upon that review of those records, you came to the knowledge that Zion was taking antidepressants, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you were present at the preliminary examination, correct?
Correct.
And you heard her state on the record, under oath, that she reviewed the records and she did not realize or know that Zion was on antidepressants, correct?
Now, by you saying that's what she testified to, and if it's in a transcript, yes.
You were there though, right?
I was at the exam.
And you were present and you were listening attentively, correct? To the testimony, correct?
As much as best I can.
Okay. And you stated you remember her saying at the exam, correct?
That she didn't recall her taking medication. I remember, I don't think seizures came up. I just remember medication.
Okay.
If it was Prozac itself.
But you do remember her saying that she did not know that Zion was taking antidepressants, correct?
If I previously stated that I didn't know she was taking antidepressants, it was my understanding that she wasn't taking medication, like pills in general.
But you just stated that you reviewed the medical records, and in those medical records, it listed that, in fact, Zion was prescribed medication for antidepressants, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you knew that at the time of the exam, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you never corrected or pulled her to the side, gave her an email, made a phone call.
Objection asked and answered.
Yeah, we go.
Okay, okay. Fair enough, I'll move on. Now, you spoke to Diane's friend Alima, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And it was your understanding that multiple times Alima and Zion would go over and smoke marijuana with Mr. Brazier, right?
I don't recall multiple times.
You don't recall her telling you multiple times that she personally went over there?
Objection to hearsay. How is this at all appropriate for him to ask questions about what another person said out of court?
It's her understanding. I'm not using for the truth of the matter, just her understanding after doing an investigation.
It's a statement.
Okay. Did you ever follow up with Ortez about the frequency of Zion's seizures?
I did.
Did you? Okay. Did you conduce that to writing? Did you do an interview?
I did an interview, but nothing was recorded or taken.
So you did an interview, that was nothing that was recorded or written down about whether or not Zion had a history of seizures?
It was in the presence of his attorney as well.
Okay. And you heard testimony from the preliminary examination and from trial, but we'll go back to the exam, where the doctor indicated that a seizure could be a possible cause of death, sudden death. You heard that, correct?
I believe her answer was it's possible.
Okay, so you heard at the exam that a medical doctor said it's possible that somebody could die from a seizure, correct?
Yes.
And you're stating that after hearing that testimony, you then followed up and interviewed Vertez, the person who indicated he saw these seizures, and you didn't reduce his conversation to writing, nor did you video or audio tape it?
No.
You didn't think that was of importance, that key issue?
It was in the presence of his own attorney.
Okay, but in this particular trial, for the fact finders in this trial, don't you think that would have been important for maybe the jury to hear whether or not...
Objection. I mean, the idea that we can just play interview videos, he knows better than to try to raise this issue. This is ridiculous.
It's a statement.
If you would have had the interview, you would have had to turn it over to defense counsel, correct?
Correct.
And defense counsel would have had this interview, which he could have questioned Mr. Gonzalez about it, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We had an opportunity direct.
If there was a particular video or interview that was not disclosed to defense counsel, you would agree that defense counsel wouldn't be knowledgeable about this particular interview in order to even question Vertez about it. You would agree with that, correct?
Sure.
Do you remember approximately when this interview was?
I interviewed him before the exam to get a better understanding of how her allegation. So an investigation is always continuing. So anytime something comes up, we get information, we have to follow up on it. So I can't recall, I'd have to look at my notes when I did interview Mr. Gonzalez at his home, which it was recorded. I believe you have that in evidence, to get a better understanding. And then when we found out at the exam about her possibly having a seizure or nodding out or however he described it, it was sometime after the exam. I don't recall when.
You recall, okay. Now, you heard testimony from the Michigan State Police body fluid identification individual?
Remind me of his
name, I'm sorry. Hafner.
Yes.
Thank you. And you heard him indicate that at some point in time he came into receipt. Let me back up. Was it your decision as to what goes to the forensics center? I mean, to the Michigan State Police for forensics?
Yes, we compile a list and send the list to the lab. Now, whether they take everything all at once, that's determined by them.
And you heard him testify that he would have liked to process all the other items that were in that trunk, correct?
I don't recall him if he said that.
You were sitting here though, correct? During the trial?
I just don't remember that part.
You don't remember that?
No.
Okay. Are you doubting he said that?
If
Okay. But nevertheless, you didn't send the other items that were in this particular trunk to him to analyze, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you stated that, I guess, a point person was a Michigan State Police trooper, because you stated that they're more familiar with this particular process?
Correct.
Are you familiar with the process?
Of submitting evidence to the lab?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And that's part of your duties as an officer in charge is to, after the evidence is collected, to decide which items are then sent for processing, correct?
Again, it's a team effort. We can bring the evidence compiled in a list to the state police. Now, they might decide this is the best evidence we're going to go with first and then continue on after.
Okay. Let me ask my question. You are involved in making the decision as an officer in charge of what goes to the Michigan State Police for processing, yes?
Correct.
And
But maybe just stop up there to take care of something unrelated to this matter.
Okay.
Take about a 5-minute break.
That's fine.
Right?
Examination, but it looks like court is starting back up right now. We're going to take you there.
I believe it was 2 portions like this of surrounding the trunk liner. It was either dismantled or cut in half because it was quite large.
Okay. And you said you believe. Are you sure or are you guessing?
I did not recover the liner. At some point it was on paper laid out and it was like portions.
Okay. And you had to give the authorization in order to for that to be processed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And did you at least review or observe the lining before you gave authorization to have it sent? Just to familiarize yourself with what it is and where it came from?
Yes, there were sections. There was brown paper with the sections of the liner.
Okay. And you heard the testimony from Hafner, I don't want to mispronounce his name, who indicated that at some point in time, his office came into receipt of a particular device that could magnify its view when searching on particular surfaces?
Correct.
Okay. Were you aware of that?
No.
Okay. Were you aware that such device existed ever?
No.
Okay. It never came across your mind to, like, I asked the question to ask him, hey, do you have a magnifying device where you can maybe get a closer view of whatever particular surface you're trying to look at?
No. I believe that they use the tools that they have.
Okay. Did you ever ask or familiarize yourself on what tools they had?
I did not.
Okay. But knowing which tools they had, that could be helpful in determining on how thorough of an analysis they will be able to provide.
I am not a forensic scientist. I have no idea what type of tools they use, what's beneficial and what's not.
Okay, I understand, but if you familiarize yourself with which tools and how they're used, that could help you in further investigations when you're calculating on what particular items that may be sent, correct?
You could say that.
Okay. Because if you know the limitations of their analysis, that could determine on whether or not you send a piece of evidence or not, because they will be able to analyze it and possibly give you a conclusion, correct?
Correct.
Going forward, we think that might be something you might want to familiarize yourself with as far as their tools that they have in order to conduct an analysis?
I could.
You said you could?
I could.
Would you?
Going forward?
Going forward, yes.
Objection to relevance.
Sustained.
Okay. Now, you were familiar with the cell phone extractions, correct, and some of the web history, correct?
Familiar? I'm familiar with the reports.
The reports, I'm sorry. And would it be a fair statement that on one of Mr. Brazier's devices that there were roughly around 1,154, I guess, porn searches, different porn searches, correct?
On one particular device,
On
yes.
one, okay. And would it be fair to say out of that 1,154, there were, as far as you know, there were only 27 that stemmed around, I guess, doesn't?
That's what Detective Franti testified to.
Okay. And there were also other web searches that were done on this particular phone, correct?
As far as the report, yes.
Okay. And you heard there was testimony that there was a WebMD website that was viewed, correct?
I believe you put that up on.
Okay. And you don't know whether or not Mr. Brazier checked WebMD for why a person could suddenly die, correct?
I did not see any particular searches like that.
Okay. But did you even inquire further as to what was visited on those WebMD pages?
That particular page, no.
Were you able to get Ms. Foster's Facebook records? If she had them?
I don't recall any Facebook records. We would just ask the family, what social media is available.
Okay. Did you ever ask, you don't have to give the answer, but did you ever ask her friend Alima if if she witnessed Zion have a seizure?
When I spoke to Alima, I asked her if she had any suicidal thoughts, if she had any medical history issues, not so much history, but any issues, and the description that I got was no, she was in a good mood. She was.
Okay. Did you follow up with Vertez about his statement that he made at the preliminary examination that she threatened to kill herself?
Say it again.
Did you ever follow up with Vertez about the statement he made at the preliminary examination that Zion had threatened to kill herself?
I believe that was in the interview that was conducted at his home.
Okay, the interview that wasn't recorded?
No, that one was recorded. That's on body camera. I asked about any, there was, again, anytime in investigation, especially at this magnitude, things keep coming up, so you have to follow up and do more investigations. There was tips or anything will come in, and there was something about her taking pills and taking pills to kill herself. I believe I remember taking pills, majority of that. So that was recorded on body cam, and he said no, there wasn't anything. She was taking any pills. She wasn't trying to kill herself.
Okay. And this was before the preliminary examination, right?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And after he testified at the exam that, in fact, she did threaten to kill herself, did you follow up with an interview with Vertez about that particular subject area?
I don't recall that.
No, okay. But you do remember him saying that at the exam, right?
There's a lot of testimony. I can't remember word for word what every single witness says.
Okay, but not word for word. That particular area of somebody trying to kill himself, don't you think that would be a pertinent line of questioning or subject area to, I guess, pay attention to?
Well, in recovered from phone extraction reports and such, there was language of saying it in jest, like, I can kill myself, my nails didn't turn out right.
Detective, I'm asking you a very specific question about what you or may not have witnessed at an exam. You were present at the exam, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And there was testimony that was elicited. Vertez testified at the exam that she threatened to kill herself. So are you stating that you did not hear that?
I'm not saying I didn't hear, I don't remember word for word what he said.
Okay, but you do remember that particular subject area being discussed, correct?
I honestly don't.
Okay. Do you think that in, I guess, a potential homicide case, if there's ever conversation about somebody threatening to kill himself, do you think that's important, yes or no?
I would say so.
Okay, thank you. Now, exhibit 72, if I'm not mistaken. The Ebony Banks video that you stated that you watched. You stated that these were actors, correct?
I believe that they were actors.
You believe they're actors, okay. So this wasn't any type of illegal snuff film or anything of that later?
I didn't believe so.
Okay. And the second video, you stated that it was a rape style type of video. And I guess the title somewhat was like DP or something like that?
It would have to be on, I don't recall the file name.
Okay. Now the second video, was there any weapons involved in this?
I don't recall any weapons.
Okay. And you said it was a rape style. Now, how is this a rape style? You stated that it was, I guess, a stepmother of some sort and two stepbrothers, if I'm not mistaken?
In the second video with the white female and two white males, she was attempting to leave the bedroom several times. They were holding, refusing to let her leave. They were holding her down, holding her hands down.
Okay. And
she repeatedly said no.
Okay, and it'd be fair to say that at some point in all these videos, it was obviously consensual sex because it was acting, correct? You would agree to that, right?
It appeared to be portraying that.
Okay. Did you do any research on maybe the producer of this particular video? Okay. The actual title of this video?
Just what was on there.
Okay.
There was no title or ending credits or anything like that. It was just like...
Okay. Were you able to identify any of the actors or actresses who were partaking in this? Okay. Now, as far as the comics, you would agree that through your observation of the extraction reports, there are numerous, I guess, visits to porn comics or something of that nature.
I did observe some.
Okay, and it would be a lot. I mean, it's more than
I didn't calculate.
Okay, but it would be more than 10 or 15 or 20.
I didn't calculate. I just referenced these. I saw others, but I don't know a number.
Okay. And some of those were included in the 1,154 different web history that was depicted in the extraction report, correct?
In the report itself contained.
Okay, so you yourself wasn't concerned as far as, I guess, trying to get a total of how many different porn sites or porn topics that could have been visited?
I didn't calculate anything like that.
Okay, and nor did you have Detective Markle or any other individual try to basically section off and do an itemization of the total amount of porn websites that were visited, correct?
No.
Okay. So you definitely would agree that 27 is a very small fraction of 1,154, correct?
Yes.
And you would also agree that this, I guess, cousin or websites, these were searched well after Zion's disappearance, correct?
I don't recall the specific dates. I would need to reference the report.
Okay. Okay. I can just, and Your Honor, may I approach? I'll approach.